now propose the question that this House adopts the second report of the Select Committee on National Cohesion and Equal Opportunity on the employment of diversity audit in public institutions, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 21st March, 2024. I want to request everyone who wants to speak to this to go to intervention. The Honorable Owen Bayer.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. While I stand to support the report, I have a few things to say, Honorable Speaker. One, you see, when you bring a report like that, and that report says, for example, Maseno University, majority of the people employed there are Luos. I also want you to go down and say, in which levels? Because what do you expect if a university is situated deep in Luo Nyanza? Majority, if you draw a pyramid, you realize that the people that are sweepers, they're the cleaners, are most likely to be from that region, not from any other place. And therefore, to bring a report to say Maseno University has 76% Luos, I also want to see these Luos are in which port of entry? Are they at the bottom? Are they in the middle? Are they at the top? That's very important so that you get correct facts. Because you could say there are very many, but they are only the sweepers, the cooks, the watchmen, and all that. Those are the only Luos that are in that institution. And that is not representative. Because where do we expect the sweepers to come from if not from the immediate surrounding? So, Honorable Speaker, if you come, for example, to Pwani University and you come and give me details and tell me that the majority there are Mijikenda, what do you expect? Because the majority of the people are at the lowest level. The lowest level are the people that you will find there. But come to management, who are the people in the management? Who are the people at the second level? Honorable Speaker, I think that will give us a clear indication. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, when it comes to disadvantaging communities, that's when we bunch them together. For example, you say at the port of Mombasa.
Honorable Owen Bayer, the point you're making
is
very important. It's a constitutional point.
Yes.
It is in Article 232.
Yes.
Sub-Article 1I, which the able chair of the committee indeed quoted.
Yes.
Which says affording adequate and equal opportunities for employment, training, and advancements.
Correct.
At all levels of public service.
At all levels.
At all levels.
At all levels. But I was making the point of, for example, you come to Pwani University, which is in my area. You look at, for example, from the top to the mid-level, you will not find a Giriama, or you find one or two. The rest have been recruited by Public Service Commission, and the Public Service Commission has recruited people because they have influence from this level. But those that are recruited by the local board there, they will recruit. The question is, those people that are recruited the public service is what we need. Commission is what we need to hold to account, Honorable Speaker. If you come to the port of Mombasa, and I want to speak at the port of Mombasa. If you come to the port of Mombasa, the people at the port of Mombasa, that the people who carry the heavy loads, the luggage, the people who sweep, the people who clean the trains and all that, a lot of them are what he has called Mijikenda, which is not a tribe. But there's no tribe in this country called Mijikenda. And I do not know where they get that statistic. There's no. Mijikenda is a conglomerate of tribes. Just like Luyas, just like Kalenjins. So when you come and tell us the majority there are Mijikenda, that is not correct. That is not correct. Then secondly, I want you also to look at the hierarchy from the top to the middle. Who are the people who are running this place? Honorable Speaker. Is it actually the case? So when you actually bringing statistics like that, we would like you to whittle down and we know the statistics so that the true picture is reflected. The people at the coast have always lamented that they don't manage the port. They do not have any say, in the ranks. They're only in the file. That's where they are. But so when you bring that and say this is a report of cohesion and ethics, diversity, Honorable Speaker, is that a true reflection? Or we are just saying, if this is a university that is in Milo, the Ambo Suba, then you come here and say that this university, majority of them are Suba. But what do you expect those sweepers, those cleaners, those people to come from? Honorable Speaker. But what matters most is those people that are recruited from the national board. I also want to pick up national organizations. The parastatals at the national level. You know, there are those parastatals that are the parastatals are usually ranked, but the parastatals at the national level. KRA, for example, which is based here in Nairobi. What is the ethnic diversity? Do we see the ethnic diversity in KRA as the same as in Nairobi? You know, Nairobi is a very diverse area. So the point I'm making is an organization like KRA, which is based here in Nairobi. Look at KRA that is here in Nairobi and the KRA office in Mombasa, for example, and tell me who are the majority. Who are the majority of those people? Look at national organizations, for example, like NEC, Kenya National Examination Council, which is at Nairobi. How is it diversified? That's where we have a problem. Those national organizations, the ones that are called national organizations, that's where we have a problem. And you find that one or two ethnic communities actually are the ones that are there. Because Public Service Commission, who are the members of the Public Service Commission that do recruitment? Who is the chairperson? Okay? You look at who is the boss, the CEO of that organization. Does the name of the CEO and the tribe he comes from reflect? Is it reflected in the membership of the staff? Then we say yes here. One person, I heard him say that there are several organizations that are dominated by one organization, and yet they are national. It does not reflect the national diversity. Honorable Speaker, these are things that we must speak about. This is where we talk about real, cohesion in a country. And these are things that we must look at. I want you to come and look, Parliament, this Parliament. I want you to tell me what is the ethnic diversity of staff and managers and all in this Parliament. Then you tell me, okay, you see here, there is an issue.
Honorable Wenbaya, the chair, when are you doing an audit of Parliament?
Yes, we would like to see that.
Because I was being told those some communities, and you know the ones I'm talking about, are too loud. They are nowhere in the management level of this Parliament.
Yes. That is what we want to see. And then, Honorable Speaker,
sit down. I'm just telling you should go beyond the scope of what you've already done.
I also want to finish by saying this. When you present this report and you give it 2 years or 3 years to correct the imbalance, what are you saying? Are you saying you are going to correct, Honorable Speaker, are you going to correct the imbalance by sacking people or by adding people? Because you've said you want to correct the imbalance. So which way? You want to sack people of certain tribe and bring in the other people to create diversity, or you're going to add people so that you create a balance? Because you're saying you want it corrected. How? I would like to see the how. I would like to hear the how, so that we know actually we are moving forward after the presentation of this report. But it will just be like any other report if it does not show us how. Chairman, how do you want us to correct the imbalance? How do you want to do it? There's certain things that we speak here. But then I want to see the port management. I want to see everybody represented in management, so that we have the face of Kenya when the port board or the management sits. I want to see a balance. That's what I want to see. I want to come to this Parliament. I see the face of Kenya in the staff of Parliament. I want to see the face of Kenya in NEC. I want to see the face of Kenya in everything. But you say you want it corrected with a certain time. How do you do it, Mr. Speaker? Sacking people or adding more people? Honorable Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you for that frank contribution, Honorable Wenmaya. The Honorable Wamboka. Minority Whip, I know you take priority over Honorable Wamboka.
She's still making her
notes. As a person who made the Constitution, we want to give you the best time.
Speaker, thank you so much. I want to support the chairman, but just like what other members have said, it is indeed disheartening that a committee of 20 people, cannot have just one other person to come and support the chairman on the floor of the House. then there is a problem. There is a problem. We leave it to our leaders that please, you will guide us and guide us very well, because this parliament must function and function properly. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak from the bottom of my heart. We have talked about institutions, but for me, we start from the top. We start from the top. And what is the top? The cabinet. I want to plead with this administration, Kenya Kwanza administration, or now broad-based administration, that please, every Kenyan has a right to feel part and parcel of this country, Honorable Speaker. If you look at the history, why revolutions start, it's about resources. It's about one feeling they do not have their person on the table. It is not only immoral, but amoral to have a cabinet of Kenya to have more than 50% from 2 communities, and yet we have more than 43 communities in this country. We want this spirit of the Constitution to cascade from the top to the ministries, to the public service, Honorable Speaker. That when a minister is making appointments, he must look at Kenya. It would worry no one, Honorable Speaker. Kenyans will not fight after every election if indeed leaders adhered to this constitutional requirement. That it matters not who sits at the top. We will get resources as taxpayers, our share. It matters not who sits there. What is due to my community will come to my community, Honorable Speaker. It starts at the top. You raised a very important point, Honorable Speaker, even about Parliament. That we create these laws, Honorable Speaker. We create these laws. But at the end of the day, how does the Parliament look like? Does it look like Kenya? Does it represent the mosaic of that fabric that Kenya is made of? No. I'll be bringing an issue to this floor, Honorable Speaker, about Kenya Revenue Authority. We spoke about the appointments that were done at the Kenya Revenue Authority. In this house, a matter was taken to court where, Honorable Speaker, almost 70% of people who were recruited at Kenya Revenue Authority came from 2 communities. The matter went to court. The court stopped the appointment of those people. But what worries me, Honorable Speaker, as we speak, those people are working. They're in the office. They're in the office. Impunity of the highest order. If the administration cannot listen to this house, if the administration cannot listen to the courts, then what country are we breeding? Honorable Speaker, I support my brother and say we must come out with more punitive laws to support this constitution. That if an appointing officer does not adhere, does not do that which the spirit of this constitution envisioned, what must be done to that officer? Because these people are appointed by people. We come here, make noise that they have appointed through obscured ways, but at the end of the day, nothing happened. For us, in the committee of this house that I chair, Honorable Speaker, we are growing towards very punitive measures. That if you are head of an institution and appointing authority and you don't adhere to the law, we will recommend to this house that you are not fit to sit for that position. And I'm happy the tone, the spirit of my good brother, I'm happy coming from the government side, my brother. This is what we are talking about. When we were in the leadership the other day, we spoke about resources, allocation of resources. That is why people fight. That if Raila Odinga is not the president, I will not have my fair share. If William Ruto is not the president, I will not have my fair share. We must stop. And it begins with us and this house. And I want to urge the house that let's develop an unpartisan approach to these issues. Honorable members, at the end of the day, we are members of parliament. Whether you are in sitting that side or this side, we are members of parliament. For once, let's have an approach that carries the Mwananchi, that satisfies the Mwananchi, that satisfies the spirit of this constitution. I support Honorable Speaker, but much must be done, and it must be done from the top to the bottom. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable John Kawanjiku, the MP for Kiamba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this debate. And I want to echo the words of my majority leader, my deputy majority leader, that the report is good from National Cohesion and Equity Committee, but it's not comprehensive, Mr. Speaker, because on the same angle, they're supposed to offer solutions and the way to move forward. Because even if you say one ethnic community is holding 70% of the jobs, you must also be able to, to describe or to calculate and say what is their percentage in terms of the population. Because you cannot give the same equal opportunity with a community that is holding 0.001% of the population and compare it with a community that is holding almost 40 or 30% of the population, Mr. Speaker. So therefore, that report is not comprehensive, Mr. Speaker. When you say that 17% of the community, one community, and you don't substantiate, and say probably this community is holding this and this position, or they were employed between 1965 to 1980, or they were employed the other 2 days ago or 2 years ago. It's not weighty, Mr. Speaker, and therefore we cannot be able to pass such a report, because that's why I want also to believe, even if my member of parliament, my colleague, is saying that there is not even a single member to support from the committee to support the report, but probably that's why we were not even sure that whether the chairman, that is the chairman's report, or is the committee report, Mr. Speaker, because it seems like chairman has also left, Mr. Speaker.
For the avoidance of doubt, the chairman is behind the consultation room here.
Exactly, Mr. Speaker. That's
and
why
is a very courteous chair. He informed me he was going behind here. The chair is a Muslim. A time comes when they need to pray. So it's just behind you here. Don't worry.
I want to agree with you, Mr. Speaker, but lack of members supporting, being in the House to support the report, it seems that something is missing in that report, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I want to tell the chair, even if you want us to pass the report as it is, there is a lot of things that are missing in that report. And I would suggest it's a good report, Mr. Speaker. It is talking about, promoting unity of this republic and of this country. And I would want to support, because sometimes, and I appreciate Kwamboka, now we are having what you call a broad-based government. Before you were still in opposition, but now you talk like someone who is in government. And we appreciate for that. But also you need to understand the genesis of this government, because as you're saying, as we continue fighting for equity in terms of distribution of resources, which I totally agree with you, but we must also understand where this government came from, Mr. Bwana Wamboka, and also understand the population that covers the communities that cover to almost 30 or 40%. So therefore, you cannot equate a community that is holding 1% of the population with a community that is holding 40%, Mr. Speaker. And I start to be guided if in any case we're gonna push an agenda of making sure that there is a representation of our community, it must also comes into terms with the percentage of each and every population. Because a population that is about 6 million, 7 million, definitely it will have a bigger share of the, it must, I agree. It must commensurate with the percentage of the population. The issue that the chairman has talked about.
Deputy Majority Whip, what is out of order?
I don't want to disturb my good friend, our Mheshimiwa, but is he in order to keep talking about shares when he knows very well that that word has costed somebody a huge thing? Is he in order? And I must also say that if he continues that way, we will think about him. We will impeach him.
Honorable Kawanjiku, when you are talking about those ethnic percentages, are you talking about them in relation to the national ethnic proportions?
Yes.
Or in relation to the manner in which communities voted in the last election?
No. I'm talking in terms of what you have said, Mr. Speaker, national ethnic population.
That one you are right.
Yes, I'm talking in terms of that, because if the community is big, we expect that at the end of the day they're going to have, a larger share of the national cake because of their population, in terms of the employment opportunities, Mr. Speaker. I also want to concur with the chair, especially on making sure that there is a certain percentage of the young people who are getting employed in by the Public Service Commission. You understand sometimes it becomes a bit difficult with our young people, whereby you are told that for you to be able to get a certain position, you need to produce an experience of 10 years or 15 years. How can a young person get an experience of 15 years and we're expecting them to perform better? We must concur and make sure that we come up with better laws, as the chair has said, to make sure that we create those opportunities deliberately, to make sure that there is equal positions in terms of the women who are getting this employment, in terms of the young people who are getting this employment, and maybe we put to task Public Service Commission to be producing a report every single year. How many jobs have been created for the young people? How many jobs have been created for the majority, not for the women? And also make sure that at the end of the day, we put a capping in terms of the employment of the old people. Because sometimes you realize, it's like we are moving backward instead of going forward, Mr. Speaker. Someone who is 65 years or 70 years is the same getting appointment of boards, chairman of a certain parastatal, and we have very young and energetic and able young Kenyan, Mr. Speaker. We must be deliberate to create employment and opportunities for our young people, Mr. Speaker. And as we move forward, and I will propose to the chair next time, because there is also a part of I can't remember the article, Mr. Speaker, but I know there is a certain percentage of employment for the local people. It may not be 70, but about 30%. If you come to the counties, especially like in Kiambu, or probably in Nairobi, or probably a company that is based in Coast Province, the 30% of the employment should be able to go to the local people, Mr. Speaker, because at the end of the day, they are provided the infrastructure, they have provided area for that company to be working around that area. So asking for 30% and making sure that they get their 30% is nothing much to us, Mr. Speaker. Even if we want to be national, we must also be, in a way, able to protect the local interest. And politics is all about local interest, Mr. Speaker. So if you are not able to take care of your local interest, even getting an opportunity to come to the National Assembly will become a disaster. So we must protect the local interest, make sure as we bring people to work from other regions, as we bring people to work, if, for example, like Kabibi, he's calling it Kabibi University or Coastal Water Development, Kebabi University. There is a certain percentage for the local people, because there is no way you will get someone from Kiambu County to go and start working like a sweeper, or maybe someone who takes, or a secretary. There are jobs that are meant for the local people. So the only thing we need to define is that what is the 30% that is meant for the local people? Is it in terms of the top management team? Is it the middle management team, or the lower or the subordinate staff, Mr. Speaker? We must create that content, and we tell the chair to continue to go back again and do a due diligence in terms of that report and make sure that there is representation there is pure or proper representation of that report. And when they are telling us that one community is holding 17%, or it is having one, it should not hold 1.7% of the total employment, they should also be able to tell us what is the percentage of that population in our republic. I support Mr. Speaker.
The minority whip will take a due place in precedence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I wish to support the report, but I will actually be commenting on some areas that I think the committee could have done better. Mr. Speaker, I grew up in a very small but fairly cosmopolitan town. Mr. Speaker, the town I grew in had majority of Luos, but also a very sizable number of Kisis, Luyas, Subas, Kurias, Kikuyus, Kambas, Somalis, Arabs, whites, and mixed races. Mr. Speaker, as a matter of fact, I was discovering that the current CS for education went to the same primary school with me. I didn't even know, because we were so diverse that sometimes you don't even know who is there. After the death of General Ogola is when I discovered he was my neighbor in Homa Bay. It was a very small town, but fairly cosmopolitan. And Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful because
Minority whip, why don't you just say it is Homa Bay Primary in my
Yes, in Homa Bay Primary School. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say that because of that, I am very grateful, because I do not suffer some very limited ethnic thoughts, inferiority complex, because I've grown up with very diverse people. I could as well have grown up in the city. Mr. Speaker, I know you identify, I don't know, but TJ went also with me in the same school. There are a number of people here who went with me in the same school. And yes, it was a serious school. It has very, very senior and serious people in this country. And Mr. Speaker, because of that, I consider myself really a Kenyan. Yes, I'm very ethnically liberated. I celebrate my ethnicity as a Luo, half Suba, married to Andevele. I celebrate that with a daughter who is Botswanan. So I'm actually global. I really I'm not limited in many ways. Mr. Speaker, I've also worked a lot in the human rights sector. And because I've worked a lot in the human rights sector, I am an expert on issues of equality and equity. Mr. Speaker, not only am I honored to have been one of the founders of the founding fathers and mothers of the Constitution, but I am also a founder of the National Cohesion and Integration Act. When Honorable Martha Karua brought this piece of legislation in the House, and we had just come from a period where we lost over 1,200 Kenyans to ethnic clashes, I remember even the title or the name that was given had something to do with ethnicity. I brought an amendment even to the title. And I remember recently when Honorable Duale attended my launch, he was actually saying that Millie can amend including the title. And he thought it was, in his word, I'm glad he actually said Millie can be very cantankerous. And for people who don't understand me, sometimes I look like I'm actually just bringing amendments for the sake. I mainstream certain issues in bills. In fact, in this parliament, I don't think I've done as well as others. In past parliaments, no bill could pass me, because I mainstream issues of human rights, gender, equity, equality, which therefore means you will see me talking to issues of youth, issues of women, issues of children, issues of minorities, issues of marginalized, and issues of older persons. And also issues of persons affected by HIV and AIDS for a long time. Because now we have different groups that have come in, I've kind of stepped down a little, because the women reps and others who are nominated speak a lot to those issues. Mr. Speaker, I just want to clarify to the committee that when the original bill came, it didn't have 1/3. I am the one who proposed amendment to increase 1/3. And the idea is that we understand Kikuyus are the most populous. But can you imagine if you went into an office where 100% are Kikuyus? it doesn't reflect the nation. It actually doesn't reflect the spirit of the Constitution that says that in our appointment it should reflect the face of Kenya. In fact, it doesn't just talk of the face. It talks about face and ethnic representation of the country. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want Honorable Baya to listen to this, that when you say that because of the local community, they should at least be the majority, that is true. 70% is actually a majority. When it goes beyond 70%, it is wrong. Our communities, even if it is a coastal community or a Homa Bay-based institution, 70% can be your locals. 30% should be people from other communities. That is when we develop even our children as truly global and Kenyan communities. Right now, because of devolution, it's unfortunate. I can go to counties where I'll speak one language. And I don't know why counties think they are exempt. They are not exempt. Even counties must follow this 1/3 rule. The only deviation or whatever we allow is if there is work, I think it is actually in the law, that if the nature of work requires such that it may go beyond, then it's understandable. Because we don't expect people to slash grass, the people slashing grass in Kiambu to come from Suba North. It is not possible. So maybe there may be deviations around that. But on the whole, if they are professional jobs, there must be diversity. Otherwise, why are we called Kenyan? Why don't we form different, countries, Homa Bay country, Kiambu country, not counties? Then we should be countries. Mr. Speaker, one of the things that I also wanted to talk about is that I've had the Honorable Chair, when he's moving this amendment, he has lumped this report, he has lumped certain communities. If you actually look at the Constitution, we were very clear that we name communities by tribe. And for the first time, we have Subas as a community. Mr. Speaker, everybody knows me as a Luo. Yes, I am a Luo because my mother is a Luo. But my father is Suba. Suba is a Bantu community. Yes. And if I actually spoke Suba here, the people who are likely to understand me are the Kikuyus and Kisis and Luyas and Taitas. The Luos will not understand me. However, especially Maragolis, I've had situations when people come to my constituency, especially in Fangano Island, where Suba is still very well spoken, people will not understand. But because we don't want our smaller communities to be extinct, that's why we have acknowledged them as such. When you are doing this report, and I hope Chair can listen, when you are doing this report, do not say the Luos and include Subas as part of the Luos. Identify the Luos, what they have, and identify the Subas, what they have. And when you are doing the coastal region, don't tell me Mijikenda. Tell us who within the Mijikenda is constituted in that group. Because then that is also a way of marginalizing smaller communities further. And then I also heard you using a word that the Mijikenda were the majority. Majority is not a figure. There's nothing wrong with communities being majority in their locality, so long as they're up to 70%. So if they are majority at 70% by law, that is okay. So don't use the words majority, give us figures. And we need to hold institutions accountable because we need an inclusive country. The Gen Zs have told us we are tribeless, but we are leaderless here. But they've told us we are tribeless. And now I wish that we don't contaminate the Gen Zs, because we need a country where your tribe should be important just as much as mine is important. Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that I'm so passionate about. Unfortunately, because of time, I can see I am limited, but I just want to say that you need to be giving this report regularly for purposes of cohesion. And that's why I changed the name, amended the name to National Cohesion and Integration. It's supposed to bring cohesion and integration, because resources, people fight over resources, but when we divide them equally, then we become united. Thank you.
The Honorable Kuria Kimani.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Picking from where the Honorable Millie Thiambo has left, I was looking at an institution where majority is up to 70%. But the law requires that you don't go beyond 70%. And I was asking myself, how objectively then do you balance the remaining 30%? And I was drawn to a few research done in the academic world about the balancing of meritocracy and diversity, and how that reflects in our governance. Honorable Speaker, John Rawls, in the theory of justice, says that a fair justice is where positions of authority are open to all and where merit-based rewards do not compromise equality. So this scholar talks about merit-based appointments. So what does that mean? That if you conducted an interview process and there were 15 people in that interview process, and you need 10, and 10 of them belong to one ethnic community, then this, if you would follow that theory, that would mean you'll give the 10 irrespective of their ethnic community, even when they came from one region or ethnic community. But go further to the one person we refer to as the father of governance, one Professor Marion King, who talks about inclusive governance, corporate social responsibility, and stakeholder diversity are crucial in good governance. He says that diversity brings broader perspective to decision making and aligning the concept, therefore, of Ubuntu, what we call human interconnectedness. And therefore, we have now research that shows, even though if you are to follow merit-based appointment, then you will take the most merited people, then the research to show that if you endeavored to go further and try to ensure that you have a diversified workforce, that diversified workforce increases inclusivity, corporate social responsibility, and efficiency and effectiveness in that organization. One, Robert Mass, in a critical mass theory, says that corporate boards that governance structures become more effective and innovative.
Apologies to the Chair of Finance. Please take your seat. That is the standing order. Chair, my apologies. I've had him repeat a mistake that I'm actually the one who's misled him, which I want to correct. It's no more than 30% should be of the same community. It's my apologies. I'm actually the one who gave the wrong figure. It's no more than 30%.
Thank you for the correction.
Thank you. So no more than 30%. But the argument still surfaces that even if you have not up to 30%, then what happens when when you have more than 30% of people from a same community qualified for that position, and the rest do not meet the merit for that particular position? And that's why I was saying the tricky balance between balancing meritocracy and diversity. So we were at the father of corporate governance called Marvin King. No, we're talking about now critical mass theory, but by Elizabeth Mass. Was talking about that corporate boards that govern structures become more effective and innovative when they are diverse enough to allow for a varied perspective. So, therefore, this shows that there is merit in ensuring deliberate action on diversity in our workforce. That even though research has shown that merit is what drives an institution, but there is merit in making sure that there is diversity in that workforce, and that brings us to a more effective organization. Meritocracy, Honorable Speaker, promotes the efficiency by selecting qualified individuals based on skills and achievements. but diversity fosters representation, equity, inclusivity, and constitutes innovation and robust decision making. In this case, Honorable Speaker, research has shown that in as much as we want to appoint based on merit, we must also be deliberate in ensuring that, or there is merit in ensuring that we have diversity in that particular workforce. And therefore, this should therefore give us a balance between the argument that was raised by my colleague, Honorable Kawanjiko, on this is the population data, and how should that reflect in those particular institutions. And at the same time, academicians also say, how about merit? Because does it mean that if I conduct an interview and the person who becomes number one in that particular interview, who scores 80%, is from a particular community, and the person who scores second scores 60%, both of them qualified, but the second one is from another community, then inclusivity and diversity should tell us that we should give the person who is number two, although the marks are lower than the first one. And so this is where we need a lot of wisdom in navigating this complexity. How do we ensure that we reward meritocracy, but at the same time ensure that there is diversity? Once we achieve that thin line, we ensure we have efficient workforce, there is inclusivity in our workforce, and there is ownership by decisions that are made by those institutions. And there is nobody that will feel they are left behind, whether they are from majority side or from where they are the minority side. And with that, I submit, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Kakai Bisau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I think this is a very important motion, and it's something that we've encountered severally in our Public Investment Committee, Education and Governance, especially on our education institution. But the problem starts in this House and the executive. When you look at the appointments, the way they're being done, you'll find that, take an example of Vice Chancellor in a certain province, it will be from that particular community. We've seen situation, even people from this House, they've literally chased away some of the workers because they are not from their ethnic background. So the problem is here. We're preaching water and we are taking wine. Now, if we are not, and simple question, I see Mheshimiwa Kawanjiko is gone. Starting with ourselves, I know there are many lawyers and even Luos in his constituency, the tea pickers, those who are picking teas. Like even in his own CDF office, how many Luos and lawyers do we have? Our minority leader in Kilifi, Mwashako here in Undanyi, how many lawyers do you have there? How many Kikuyus or different communities? So it starts with us. Secondly, I know colleagues mention, and I say charity begins at home, starting with Parliament. The report should have started by saying this is the situation in the Parliamentary Service Commission, so that even as we step out there, we know exactly what is happening. But most critical, Chair, it starts with us. And in fact, picking from where I worked before the United Nations, we had what we call the quota system. You pick the population based on the argument of Honorable Kawanjiko, and you say, this is the population of Kenya. An example, the Kikuyus should be 17%. And when you're distributing jobs, when it reaches that level, you freeze it. That way, you're able to accommodate people so that every Kenyan feels is part of Kenya. I know, Mheshimiwa Yusuf, you talked about the Canadian Association and the Employment Act. While I support this report, it would have been important for us also to have an action plan where we say that this is how it should go. And lastly, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Order. Honorable Kakai Bisau, you will have 6 minutes to speak to this matter when it will next be scheduled by the House Business Committee. Honorable members, and the time being 7:04 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Wednesday, the 6th day of November 2024 at 9:30 a.m.
We are traders. We were born for this. Born to thrive in chaos, to make bold decisions when everything is on the line. Exness, born to trade.
God bless you. It's great to be with you today, and I hope you'll stay connected with us during the week through our daily podcast, our YouTube channel, and social media, and you can come visit us in person. We'd love to have you be a part of one of our services. And I'd like to start with something funny, and I heard about this couple that had been married for 60 years and never had an argument, never had a crossword, and they were at a church function, and someone